there's people that are in this space every week, brand new for the first time, right? And maybe they haven't found datacenterHawk yet, right? We talk about it on our podcast. I listen to I listen to everybody's podcast that I can, right? What do you tell people you do that have not, they don't even know the whole ecosystem yet.
Sure.
They know that they're at the baseball park, but they couldn't tell you the names of the people on those little white pads and the people that are on the green field, right? So they're still learning their way. It takes a little bit of time, right? We all started from somewhere.
Yep.
I remember vividly. Still there's times I'm sitting around in meetings and I have to Google stuff because I'm like, something new every day, right? But what do you tell people that are coming in? They're like, how do I get read in? Like, what is it the datacenterHawk does?
Yeah,
what's the primary core mission?
I just say
we didn't start as a podcast company.
I typically just say we're Zillow for data centers. And that is the easiest way for people to go, oh yeah, okay, I get it. Like Zillow's a map with data centers on it. That's what we do.
That's fantastic.
Underneath that, then we get into all the products and
did Zillow buy you?
Everything. No.
Paid to say that. Got it.
But I will say this too, the people that are getting in the space, regardless of what you're doing, I think more importantly is who you're doing it with. Because I think that the 2 to 3 years you come into and I think this is probably true for most careers, but the 2 to 3 years that you enter into something new, your ability at the end of those 3 years to have a good story of, hey, this is what I've accomplished. These are the people I've worked with. And if you want a recommendation, that they're the people that would give it to you, I think really making sure that those people you can trust and, that are interested in helping you grow and learn. And I think that's a big part of our space. And, we, I think as business leaders need to, if we're saying, hey, there's a labor issue, we better be trying to think through how we are bringing people in.
Intentionally,
how we are training them up, not just from a industry perspective, but from a professionalism perspective, and how are we helping them grow in their careers. And, I think that's I had people do that for me. I'm sure you had people do that for you.
Block and tackle. Yeah, 100%. I have a lot of people around me that will pressure test me in the ways that just to ensure that I'm not comfortable with things. And they humble me. Many times I've done a podcast and we'll just get a text from someone who is a mentor that says, stop saying that, or like, don't be stupid, right? I'm like, Roger that, check. You need those things.
Yeah.
This is, I think that there are people right now that are going to be listening that are going to find their stride in this industry in a few years from now, and it'll probably be for a job that doesn't even exist yet today, because that's how dynamic this industry is. But I'm with you. I think that there needs to be there's pockets of these collectives that have their own communities that they kind of align themselves to. I think you understand whose ours is. And I'm like, the beauty of like you rattled off a bunch of things. You want to get in the data center industry? Go get an engineering degree. Go get this, go get that. There's skills coming from the trades, right?
Yeah, sure.
But there's also a lot of people that could come in that have they have a work ethic and they have character.
Yes. Yeah.
And they have an aptitude to learn. And sometimes those people are the ones that it tends to be the hungriest, the ones that have been pressure tested. And they appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, and that's such a good point. If you have those type of personal skill sets, you're probably going to be successful anywhere you go, but you come into this space, you'll hit a home run. You can learn the stuff, and now it might take, to learn our business, that might take 2 years. To learn the electrical engineering side, that might take 5 years. The time can be a little bit longer depending on what you do. But if you are that person, dude, your problem is going to be taxes and, whatever, because you're just going to do great. And that's like, those are the people we want working with us. I'm always like, I want to make sure that number one, you can work your butt off. I like hanging with you. We can, interact and you'll give just as much, for this as you would for, something that you would do personally or something like that. And those type of people we want in our space,
You want them because what we do for anything is what we do for everything. So you want those people that are able to display, like, this is what I am here. I'm probably like that all the time, right? And for us, I think there's a huge influx of veterans that are in this space.
Yeah.
I don't think that's in spite of us, right? There's no organized whatever. There's just people that find value because maybe they work around another person that was former military in that building. But I've arrived at a point where the mission critical industry, which was I think the way it was codified initially, I think, was from the broker community that basically said anything below a half a megawatt is this, and anything,
Yeah, sure.
So, a lot of the things that you hear originated, the language, the dialect.
Yep.
And I tell people, I'm like, listen, yes, we were moving electrons this way, and we're getting rid of cool that way. But think of it as like if you were to be parachuted into another country and just tasked with understanding the dynamics of their government,
sure.
You'd come out speaking fluent, whatever, Portuguese, and understanding exactly what the voting system is. But it's immersion.
Yep.
Like we survive. When I had cancer, my cancer quote on my coin, my challenge coin was Sun Tzu, right? And he's the father of all warfare, right? And he says, it's not till you're faced with annihilation do you ever really thrive. So it sounds like when you were at your worst, like when your leg was broke, that's when you had to rewrite the constitution of you as a person, when you were pressure tested like that. And that trauma is where growth strives. What I'm saying is we need people that have been pressure tested.
Yep.
In the military, we call it the industry mission critical as well, but we measure it in mortality, not downtime. So you could put a person that's been in combat on a construction site and something can go wrong and you'll see the emotional range that those people have because they're like, everyone's going home tonight. No one's getting shot.
Sure.
That's not, do you understand
100%.
perspective?
Yeah.
So I think that helping bring people in and then what you're doing is helping create platforms that allow people to reach other things that allows them to tether into more ways to get educated on the industry. What is the, was when you started that thing, was the intent did you want growth capital? Did you want to be able to grow and reach more and touch more of the industry?
Yeah.
Is that what's the genesis behind?
Yeah.
Where's the goal?
Yeah. The goal I think for us was to build, eventually, sell our company and then just to keep iterating, I think we can set our kind of 3 month, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year goals. But after that, it's, you have some long-term visions, but it's hard to really understand what those could be. But I know that we have a platform. We built a machine. We have a platform that is accessible 24/7. It's continually changing. Information is always going into it, and how we can grow that and mature it over time. That's the goal, is to continue to grow this into a global platform that all people can access.
And I imagine that the innovation that goes into the technology that's used to do that transcends into the clients that we end up building data centers for anyway, right?
Right on. It's yes, 100%.
So can I, what else do you want people to know about you before I get to ask some other kind of cool questions since you're sitting here? Because I get a lot of inquiries. I told people we had you coming in and they're like, well, I want to know this and this.
Gosh, nothing other than I think one of the best things about getting to do what I have done is watching people grow. And that's been, when I look back about things that I'm proud of, is getting to be part of that. And, we're all part of that in some way, whether you're running a company or whether you're just entering a company. But I think getting to help people think through, hey, I've told our team before, they would tell you, like, I'd say, if you're here for a month, a year, 10 years, you better be a different person when you leave. And if not, we have let you down. That's really
what excites you, I guess, about that stuff. It sounds like you love the industry. Like I love the industry, but my passion and purpose falls in parallel to the industry, and it's in service of my purpose.
Sure.
So the industry is kind of in service of my purpose. So I love things on both sides of the ball, right?
Yeah.
I love having a business that could be accretive to both sides of the industries that I love the most. For you, what is like the thing that is most, not infectious, but addictive maybe, for like what keeps you rolling? Like watching how crazy deals went from being big deals at 2 megs to 6 to 7. Remember, you're big time if you could do 12 megs in one click, and then next thing you know, you're building buildings at 3 or 4 buildings. Like, what's exciting you about the growth of this industry?
Yeah, I think just I would say the scale of it. I don't think I ever would have. If you walk down or drive down Loudoun County Parkway in, Ashburn, it's
like the
hard to believe.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe. We do this every day, and you build these buildings. It's like, they're huge. And I can talk about a 750,000 square foot building that can house however many megawatts or whatever. But when you go walk in it and when you see it, and when you think about, this is why these companies are able to do this. This is why these, businesses can do this, or this is why during the pandemic, we were able to continue, technologically. It's exciting. And I think that's it. We are still seeing things in our industry right now that that in some ways we couldn't have predicted. And I think that's really fun if you think about our space.
I'm fascinated being around people that talk about the things because the things that I don't see, right? Because you view it through a different lens or filter, but also like we realize things different in our own realities. And when COVID hit and we saw that massive, we were already growing at a double, like 19, 20 point CAGR, right? So when that happened, like most industries were worried, and ours was like, it's called Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bring it on.
Keep coming, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just 7 by 24, 365 means that. And what I saw was the reason why ours thrived is because every other business ties back to what we do.
Sure.
So, I'm not talking about metaverse and I'm talking about, you can think about e-commerce, any aspect of that. When's the last time you went to the airport to buy your flight, right? Or get your boarding pass? So could you imagine, having to turn off all these consumers that are aggregating all this eyeball content?
Yeah.
That genie's out of the bottle, right?
Yeah.
You think TikTok's going away for real? Yeah. Have you not paid attention?
Sure.
So my thing is like, you look at this stuff and I was like, man, I didn't realize how dependent every other industry was on the data center industry because we just trucked. In fact, we probably picked up some momentum, right? As a byproduct of that. And I still don't think, there's been plateaus. I don't think that we're heading towards a plateau right now.
Yeah.
So to that end, I'm just like now, right? We both started our careers at a different altitude and airspeed within the industry, right? And you were looking at it from a different, from up here. And I was at the deck plate, carrying a tool bag into buildings and stuff like that. And to this day, I still view things. I've been conditioned one way and you the other. Sure. So I look at it from, I've worked for operators. I've worked for a few. This is the side of the ball that I'm better at. I play better on this side. Yeah. And I can bring more value to the industry being on this side, I think. My thing is, I see there are some things that shift, and before I shared with you some of the things that I had that I think I'm predicting, because again, I analyze and interpret the tea leaves from the deck plate. So I'm seeing it from the field. Sure. We're crawling around everybody's data centers, and half my clients are operators, the other half are the enterprise end users. And in many cases, I'm in the building representing, two of my owners' reps are supporting the same program from beginning to end, just two different fiduciary responsibilities, right? My thing is I get to see those things from here, right? So I get to work with some of the biggest operators on earth, and I get to see the means and methods in which they do things differently and how their own, how their contracts could hurt them, how their ecosystem, the way they treat their partner, but I could also see how all those things also benefit them in great ways. And those are their IP or their advantages that make them versatile or more agile. What are the things that you see from your angle? And I'll share with you, how I view it from mine. Because I view it from the field side, building these things and ordering supply chain. And I think we have a pretty big power challenge right now. And I think it's greater than the data center space. I think this is a infrastructure, and actually each region there's levels of this, but I think the aged infrastructure that the U.S. and Europe and all these areas have with the needs that are in the pipeline, we got a problem, and figuring out how to create the new infrastructure needed, upgrade the old infrastructure. To meet these needs moving forward, it creates a number of different challenges. There's a real estate challenge there. There's obviously a security challenge there, a reliability challenge, and so I think that's one thing that I think will be a massive focus down the road. And that's just with that's not even thinking through like the renewables and the sustainability piece of that, and that's part of that discussion. Or the fact that it pushes capacity into other markets that maybe don't have the network capacity to support them too, and that puts pressure on that aspect of the industry. Yeah, so that's a great point, because one of the trends right now is not waiting for the power to come to you, but go to where the power is. So where the power is typically in larger availabilities is an area that lacks the other things that the areas that have the power have. So
So that's I think this infrastructure challenge, and to be honest, that's where one of the biggest opportunities is in the space, to understand those things, to be an expert in those things, to create platforms around those things, to help customers work through those challenges and deliver services with that. I'm like, so I look at it and go, these might be problems, but what they point to is an industry that's growing, an industry where there's demand. So we, in 2021, North America, the major data center markets, well, actually, across all data center markets, we did about 950 megawatts of absorption or demand.
Really?
So,
Hold on. Say that one more time.
2021.
Yeah.
950 megawatts.
That was contracts or absorption?
That's absorption and contracts being signed. So when contracts being signed, we count that as absorption. Okay. So that's 2021, 950. 2022, we did 2,250. So 950 in 2021.
Damn.
2250.
Are we double counting though? No. That's what I'm asking, because you're putting that up on. Oh, those are all net new contracts.
Yes.
Holy cow! And they're buying those out for the next 2 years.
That's right. So then this year in the first quarter, we did about 450. So if you extrapolate that out, we're maybe in the 2,000,
1,800. Yeah.
So my point is that the industry, even when it does 450, there's some of the things that we're hearing, and I know some of the things that you're working on and hearing are just with just deal sizes and requirements that we've just never even seen before.
They just don't stop getting ridiculous, do they?
Yes. And so that's what
it's just so crazy.
Even in the midst of this, we can't get the power to the sites. There's real estate issues. The backlog seems to be growing in certain ways. And so I think that that's something that if you picked your problems, that'd be the one to pick, versus we got all the supply. Where's the demand? That's not the problem today.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that the rental rates are going back up. It's one of the reasons that I think data center operators are trying to figure out how to finance their way through this period in a way that in 2024, 25, 26, they are set to really start to, deliver if things kind of get a little, like it thaws out a little bit with kind of where the market is today.
But those are leased up spaces, right? I mean,
sure. But I think that it's kind of like the next, you're having, if you want to do a deal in 2030 in Silicon Valley, you better start buying land today. You better start working on that today, because those are and that's an extreme example.
Yeah, I get
but in Northern Virginia, it's 3 or 4 years in certain areas and 18 months to 24 months in others. So it's a different world today. In our space.
I think it's going to, what do you think is going to be the ultimate byproduct of these things? Because I think that'll just continue to take secondary and third tier markets and create,
yes.
I mean, look at, we're in Austin.
Yep.
This is not a tier 1 market.
Sure.
But it's going to be.
But watch out. Yeah. It's
going to be. Yeah. Right.
And I think too, it's going to move the geographic, in the big markets, it's going to push to the outermost submarkets that it can until the network breaks. And then that's when it goes, well, we've got to move this application to the next area, and it's outside of that market, maybe to another market. So, we're still incredibly bullish about our space, even in the midst of
over the next 4 or 5 years.
Yes.
How far?
Yeah. And I think because after that, to be honest, it's hard for us to get further out from that to really know.
Well, it all ties back to the genesis of what you were talking about. Like, when's the last time any company needed less data?
Yeah,
it's the number 1 commodity in the world now, right? So like, it's not like our habits are. In fact, wait till we have heads-up displays everywhere. People are wearing like the Google Glass or whatever's, or the, I don't know. I'm sure there's other things that are going to track.
Or even like watch what is happening with AI right now. It's become so much more commercialized, in my opinion, over the last 6 months. And when we were talking about it on the way down here, it's like,
are you worried?
There's things
that's a yes
that I probably should.
Yes,
I probably should be worried about.
You should not testify under.
But I'll
play poker with you.
Yeah, sure. I'll just give you my money in advance. No, but I think that I don't like that it takes away the creativity of a lot of things that people have and can add to things, but there's some ways you can use it that are extremely helpful, that businesses can use. But I think that it's, in my opinion, it's one of the first technologies I've seen that has really impacted our space and is going to in the future. We talk a lot about the edge, and we talk a lot about autonomous cars and all these things. And I'm like, those are great. There's a lot of interesting things about those. Here and now, this is having an impact.
Oh yeah. Last year, I think it was last year at DCAC, I think it was Peter got on stage and said, yeah, in like 6, I mean, he's got a huge propeller hat, right? And he goes, I think 6 years, like quantum will, there will be nobody that can't crack any code. Like there's going to be, security will be like, as long as I have this application, it'll get through anything.
Yeah.
It's going to be impossible.
Yeah. And
what does that do? Does that take us back to analog in some cases for certain things? Who knows? But this industry is at the foundation now. It emerged as a byproduct of the needs of the consumer, and now is the largest industry that drives and influences the ability for other industries to be able to evolve themselves.
Yeah, sure.
They can't evolve without our capabilities and limitations on how we create the home for the cloud, right? So that is something that's taken on a life of its own as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are so many moving parts that I tell people, I go, we're not a stabilized asset class or industry of any kind. I mean, like the way we do anything is so volatile. It's so dynamic that there's a good chance we're doing it completely opposite, 2 quarters from now. How many times have you seen things that are like, yeah, this is the next best thing. And they're like, yeah, we don't use that anymore.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, but how there are things, and I'm not going to say it on this podcast, but later, but there are products and ideas that have been introduced to me, let's just say over the last dozen years.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, this is the next best thing. And I still get that narrative today, and no one's adopted it at the rate in which they thought they would. So I'm like, someone's got to stop pushing that rock uphill. Sure. Let's just pivot and go get the right thing that the industry needs. If they wanted it, like...
Yeah, they would have taken it by now.
This industry doesn't lack genius or intelligence, right? So people got a lot of big fat brains, and they know what's best.
That's a good point. I'll get questions about this technology or that, or this new thing happening. And I'm always like, we have a lot of smart people in our space. And so I'm not saying that something couldn't, totally change this industry and all of a sudden take data center capacity from 36 megawatts down to 3. But I would imagine if that existed today, or the thought did, we would be a lot closer to it than, we are right now. And it's, I think we have some incredible, I mean, you were talking about Peter, and I think I actually remember that conversation, but,
could have been 2 years ago.
Yeah, no, I think it was this year actually.
All right.
But I think just the people we have in our space and what they're working on, it's fascinating, to watch. And it's one of the reasons I'm excited about the space over the next, 5 to 10 years, just to see where we will be. I mean, there's some of these things that I think we could have predicted, and many of them that we could not, just given the state of the world and how much has changed over the last 3 years.
So, man, that's so much to unpack. It's good to see that you're just nerdy and excited about. I love this stuff.
Appreciate that.
Yep. But that's listen, you're a big bad football player from Dallas, but you're a communications major because he didn't want to get into business, who started his own business.
I know, it's
and is a nerd about the industry.
Yes.
I got it, man.
Yes.
So, but I enjoy talking to people that get to see it from a different perspective.
Yeah, sure. Right on. Me too. Yeah.
Especially on like the finance side, like when I get around some of the money people and try to understand, the optics and how they view the space and, reliability wise, like how do they see this as like, oh, this isn't sustainable. This is untenable. It's going to hit a plateau and then crash. Like, like, no, I don't think so. I don't see that coming anytime soon. In fact, I don't even know if I could point to a single data center operator that has failed in spite of themselves.
Sure.
Because they're like, wait a second, I don't even know what you're saying, but you have capacity, right? Like, let me show you how to write an SLA. They don't care. They just need that space. Yeah. I'll buy the whole building. Yeah. Take you out of the game, right? Like, they just don't care. And when you first started, right, you had, let's be honest, I think that the only people that knew, the experts were the brokers. Yeah. Right? And now the procurement teams, which in some cases have former brokers or, now there's a massively sophisticated procurement force that radiates and they pollinate the industry going from one hyperscaler to the next or whatever, but they help standardize on means and methods of making purchasing decisions that make it easier for us to figure out how to just not get caught up with the bullshit of being in business, but start bringing those visions to life.
Yeah, sure.
Right? Because, they could have the greatest ideas, but if they're not getting the teams to pull together, then you're not bringing it to life.
Yeah. And your point's a good one. Also because, I think 07, 08, 09, there was a kind of air in the industry of like, this is from the data center operator perspective, that this is the way you build data centers. This is how you do it. It doesn't matter if you have this amount of capacity. You need to, get that capacity to this to match this, because this is how you do it. And I think over time, the data center operator community has done a much better job of listening to the customers, really trying to understand, hey, how do we industrialize this thing the best that we can, but be able to flex when our customers have the needs that they do to help them, because pulling these projects off, you have to have people that are helping you along the way, because they're just so massive. That's another thing is like you drive by a 36 megawatts to get that capacity and the electrical systems and the water and all the things to work right on time is so challenging.
Oh yeah.
And so, but our people have gotten really talented at delivering it. And so the user operator relationship it is a partnership. With some of these bigger projects, it has to be, or it will not work. You cannot do some of these massive projects without that kind of long-term relationship in mind. And so I think that has been one thing that has allowed our space to grow, where it is today.
I would agree with that. What advice do you have for young people that you engage with today that maybe they're getting out of high school, not sure what they want to do. Maybe they're getting out of college, not sure what they want to do. Maybe they're working for a trade or something. Who knows? But what advice do you give people about this industry that don't know anything about it?
The first thing I'd say is find people that you want to work with. I think that believe in they believe in you just as much as they, need someone sitting in a chair doing a job. So I think that'd be the first thing, is that the people that you work with are extremely important. You said it before, but it's, get there early, stay late, bust your butt. I mean, you have got to
just hustle.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to, our leadership team in the office, we get in at, we get in early. And so typically the people that get in early are the ones that we interact with, and it's not intentional. It's just because we're there, And so I think realizing those things, figuring out how to show yourself in a good way, work your butt off. You do those things well, chances are you'll be successful. I mean, I'm sure there's some scenarios where maybe that wouldn't happen, but dude,
not here.
You give me a person like that and let's go.
I think you just have to be willing to, when I first did this, when I first started Overwatch,
how long has it been now?
So I waited till the absolute best time to do it, which is just a few months before a global pandemic. So did you not get that memo?
Fair enough. Yeah.
So we launched November 1st.
Okay.
And I think I did a podcast with you probably just right around that same time. And I think we were talking about that, right? I'm like, I'm going to go do this thing to help, and I didn't build a company like you did, right? You had a very strong intention of this and this and this. And you were like, I'm going to build the Zillow of the industry type of thing. And you did. You nailed it, right? I was like, I'm going to build the greatest team I can. And then we'll figure out what the company's capabilities and limitations are around it. Yeah. Right. And to this day, the greatest challenge I have when you have so much, I have a very talented team, and it's disruptive every time you introduce another savage, right? Because there's a lot of overlapping offsets, and if you try to truly get more lift, you want to have more surface contact. So I'm like, spread out, guys. I don't need you overlapping. Yeah, I need you guys to see if we could cover more ground.
Yeah, right? Sure.
And each one of them sadly has to represent one of my blind spots. So it tells you how stupid I am. I have to bring on all these people because I can't think through myself. But I have just amazing people. But every time I do, then there's always, an acclimation period and then an adjustment period. And it's like anything else. It's a tribe, a culture, a team, but they all have a unique skill set. Yeah. Right. So I'm like, okay, well, this person can do, arbitrarily speaking here, they're an expert from the substation down to they stop at the wholesale level just before the PDU. And then I have another group like, they're PDU down, experts on low voltage structured cabling, all the things. But I don't need utility. I do need some utility people. Sure. But I also need those that could go an inch wide, but a mile deep. Oh, yeah. Right? Yeah. And to do that, you kind of have to, you're kind of patching together this unique social dynamic. And with that, mean, people are crazy. Yeah, it turns out we all think differently and we all have our own different emotions. Who would have thought, right? So like, and we're in a very disruptive industry that's growing at a crazy pace. And, you know, I look at this industry and I think of all the opportunities that we have to grow. And I mean, just, you think it's in its, did you say you thought it was in its infancy still, or?
I don't think it's in its infancy, but I don't think that it's certainly
still pretty new.
Yeah, it's certainly not mature.
Well, do you think it's going to plateau?
I mean, in a good way.
I agree, but I don't think that we're going to, I don't know if we can't, I don't think the municipalities, I think that we'll see enough regulation from the attention we're getting now.
Yes.
That there's going to be things that make building data centers here, sadly, almost as long of a process as it would be in Europe.
You're right. Yeah, 100%. I mean, those timelines are just, extending. So I would agree with that. But I think back to your comment about just people, that was a big change for me when I was able to hire people that were really good at what they did. And, like we hired Rhett, I don't know, Rhett, you tell me 3 years ago, he totally transformed our podcast marketing, all of that stuff, the expertise behind it. How do we create this stuff? And now it's been transformed into kind of a marketing engine. We hired.
Oh, it's a good source.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was not, I mean, I can get on a microphone and talk, but to really produce it and think through it. I mean, his expertise, Montana's been phenomenal from like the analyst and data level. I mean, I'm a data nerd. He's 10 times me. Is that fair? But he does agree, and
he's a black belt in judo. So watch it.
That's right. So anyway, I think to your point is having these people has grown our business exponentially. That's a hard thing. When you start out, you're trying to figure out, you're wearing all the hats.
Your ability to grow and scale is based on, it's limited to the only factor that really matters, the number one resource that matters, and that's the human resource, right? So
totally, which is funny when you're trying to build a tech platform, but it's people.
It's culture, people.
Yep.
When you find people that believe in what you believe, I'm sure that it's infectious, right?
Yeah,
you guys probably all feed off each other.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
So what's tell me one of the craziest stories, if you're allowed to. Like, yeah, I mean, we'll edit it out if you're like, take that out. But is there anything cool? What's a crazy ass story that you've got to see since you've been in this space? I could tell you about some fun projects I've been on that were like, there's nothing possible. We can't do that. And we're like, it's going to happen.
Yeah. I think, I'm trying to think crazy,
some of the wildest ones, Wild Wild West.
Yeah. I mean, I think
something
just
that blew your mind.
Watching, I said the industry's, not mature yet, but I think watching the way that the construction world has matured over time, because you walk some sites a long time ago that you would go, oh my gosh, like there's so much capital being placed here, so much power. I mean, the safety standards that we have today versus, a long time ago, they've come a long way. And so I think
the designs have come a long way.
Yes. So I think just walking through some of that and me being dumb at the time, not realizing it, until you kind of walk off and you go, oh, that was going on, or that, I think that those are probably some of the, crazier, stories. But we have, our industry is full of characters. I mean, we have, some great personalities in our space, and that say things and do things that, are interesting. And I think at times probably a little overboard, but I'm
sitting right here.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you're like, why are you looking at me as you
that's
sit
how
right
it
in my
goes.
eyes?
So,
anybody in particular that there's polarizing people. I like that. Look, man, we don't want groupthink in this industry.
Sure.
That's the last thing we need. We need people challenging each other and saying like, no, we don't need, think about the person that one day, okay, let's start from here. I remember when I was a UPS service engineer and showing up people like, I have no idea. I've been running this bank forever and we have this IT thing and I don't even know if I need this thing, but someone said I have to have it. And I remember going back a few years later and I had to add a second UPS. And they're like, why do I need two? And I'm like, one's to back up the other one. Like, this is getting out of hand.
Oh.
Imagine where the industry came to, from that perspective, where people weren't even sure why we needed one UPS.
Yeah.
Now you have tier 4 and 2 in block. And then now you're at, people are like, look, we just take we don't do that at the facility anymore. We just do it on the app. It's retroactive replicated right here. So we, what I'm saying? So Anybody that building tier 4s?
Yeah. No, and actually that's a funny, if you think about
the whole trend's trend.
Yes. If you go to the other side of that, there's some data centers that I think we've probably all walked through that were completely over-engineered.
I've been in a few.
Yeah. And, the people that made those decisions, I just feel so bad, for them because, this is over-engineered in so many, levels. And some of that,
20 million a meg.
Yes. And so you see what those end up transacting for when somehow they're bought or, it's a little painful.
Crazy. But it's also it's interesting to see how, the product itself has shifted. Like when you guys were brokers, the product was, you guys would send out these 97,000 page spreadsheets that had a tab for every color, and it was just you'd have sales engineers sitting around for hours, going through tag teaming that and then right into a therapy session. Right. And I remember those sales engineers, those solution engineers, man, those guys, it really forced them to get really good at what they were doing because they were answering all these things. And then eventually you answer them enough at the same time. But that's where the technology, people were actually winning deals based on the reliability or they have another 9, Now they're like, what are we doing? They're all 2 in SLAs, so let's just, and then the product became speed.
Yeah.
And I think now the product is volume.
Yeah.
Right. It was technology. Now it's speed to market, and it's obviously a little bit of everything. They're not compromising one thing for the other.
Sure.
But there's always something that kind of jumps out at front at that time. And I think right now what moves the needle most is access to volume, right? And it dovetails back to the things that you're talking about, and that is power. So if I'm in a market that's not going to be opening that up or that's unfavorable now, let's go figure out which markets haven't figured that out.
That's right.
And I do think you're going to see a greater spread, which, the rising tide will eventually benefit everybody, but there will be some winners and losers in some of those things as we consolidate the market.
Yeah, sure. These problems don't fix themselves fast. And so you've got to take some bets, outside of the normal right now, in order to win, I think 3 to 5 years from now, 5 to 10 years from now. Some of the land purchases that are happening today, there will be deals getting done on those sites in, some of them 5 years. And it's not because there's not interest. It's because the product can't be built or delivered fast enough to meet the demand in some cases. Anybody
surprise you the most that jumped on scene that you did not see coming? That you're sitting there with your crystal ball?
Yeah.
Right.
I would say, I think the groups that, when I think about the data center operator community, there's a number of groups that are led by leaders in, former publicly traded groups, the Crosbys of the world, the Shaps of the world, those groups that have positioned themselves in a platform or started a platform to grow over time. I wouldn't certainly think, didn't say we didn't see them coming, but to watch what they have done has been really fascinating. And there's others too. Those are two I think we both know that come from, top of my head, but I think that's really interesting is you a lot of times can have these massive companies competing against companies that are, not as big, but maybe are more flexible, can do things differently, can deliver things differently. And it's been really fascinating to watch the competition over the last, 5 years.
No, I agree. Look, it is amazing to see, because I remember joining this industry and there was, people that I get to talk to now that were celebrities in this space. So, every industry has its celebrities. This industry has celebrities. Sure. Do you agree? And I remember sitting back one day, and I think I worked for Shap, and we were talking about, all the other companies. We were name the publicly traded mission critical REITs or the private. Yeah. It didn't matter. We were just let's just say the top 10. Yeah. Right. I remember looking at them, and one thing that they all had in common is they all had someone in their C-suite that worked for digital. Yeah, sure. And I was like, dang, is there any company that's had a much more massive influence on this industry than digital? And I don't even do work with them. So it's not, does that, not that I wouldn't, but they're so massive that they already have established partners. I just looked at it, I'm like, at some point, that's all digital alumni. At some point, most of these people came from that. Is it, to your knowledge, is there a shop that? No, and I think, to be honest, I think one of the reasons why a lot of those, the people that Crosby, Shap, Brent Behrman, those guys
at the very beginning, they saw more deals, more requirements, more leases than anyone because they had global responsibility for a global company. And, they were looking at all these different transactions over time. And again, this is me just talking, but I think that obviously has given them a level of expertise and thought around how to build a company, how to shape requirements, what site to build, where to build, all those things that have helped them be successful. But you could actually say probably, the early Equinix, the early digital, perhaps even the early like Cyrus ones, that time period of 2003 to 2009.
That was a good time.
Yeah. That is where so much expertise was gained. Mm-hmm. And from that, those people go to do different things and create different companies and platforms. And here we are today.
I do think there's a few companies that probably had the greatest impact on pollinating the rest of the industry, right? There's a lot of companies that have, if you look at engineering firms, from the KWs to whatever's, and you could do it all the way into the commission agents. Most of the best ones have at some point maybe came from an EYP or something. But like there's a lot of farm outs where you have these preeminent institutionalized, powerhouses and those ones end up creating more leaders that go on and doing certain things. But I'll tell you, I've been sitting in front row in this industry too since shortly after I got out of the military, and it's been amazing to watch all the growth that's taken place. But I don't think that we'll see from the time that I got into now where we're seeing, 70 plus megawatt data center buildings being built at a click for wholesalers for a single enterprise and user. Not that they don't do that for themselves as the enterprise, but I'm like, I don't know how they make them. I don't think we're going to see contracts for 300 megs at one click, in one market I don't know where that growth will top out at. Yeah. Because we also don't know what's going to happen with these new chips coming online and how much, maybe the density gets higher and the footprint gets smaller. Yeah. But it's going to be really interesting to see where that levels off so people could catch up on the supply chain side.
Yeah, sure.
You can't get ahead when you're trying to get even. Yeah. Every time you reinvent yourself. What do you mean we're doing something completely different now? I just got here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's how it is. And I get to, we get to kind of kick, put our heads under the tents in a lot of different shops. So we get to see the real life scramble, how they're doing. And you have to read the tea leaves sometimes because they do a pretty good job of holding their cards close. Sure. But you can see where their blind spots are. And I'll say this, it all comes back to my opinion, even to what you were just describing, one company over the other, it really comes back to leaders, right? And if you look at like the Behrmans and the Crosbys and all those guys, I mean, I don't know who at some point maybe we'll have to do another podcast and talk about who the top 10 most influential people.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah, that'd be really cool.
It would be. Let's do it. Because I'll tell you, it's not against. I mean, we could probably start with a top 100, but narrow it down to the top 10. It's subjective, but there are those that they still have a profound impact on the industry.
I agree.
They've been around for a long time.
Yeah, I agree.
But now they're more from a legacy perspective doing it. Where they're not out front. They're teaching. I got people that tell me what to say all the time. And I don't know why, but in spite of myself, they want to see me be, you know what I'm saying? So they'll be like, hey, steer this way a little bit more, right?
Sure.
How amazing is that? I'm like, they don't have to do that, but they do. And because of that, I'm able to make whatever impact. So they're actually still continuing to make a huge impact on the industry through others.
Yeah. And I think that, I can think back to a number of.
Who was the greatest impact to you or influence you had? Was it Pat or?
That's a great question.
Who was your mentored you?
Yeah, when I worked at CBRE, I worked with one of the brokers there, a guy named Pat O'Keefe, he's retired now, but he was the reason that I got into the space. And I would tell you that I learned a lot of, anything from an engineering perspective, from the data center side, technically, deal side, technically from him. And I think that was and then I figured out what his blind spots were, weak spots were, where I could come and add value. And that'd be another thing actually for the young professionals out there. It's like you figure out what you can, you need to step back from a situation, look at the people you work with, because you work with older people that have certain skills and then they don't have other skills, and you figure out how to supplement those
100%.
And watch what happens. You will be in meetings you never should be in because tenure wise.
Opportunity.
Yeah, because you deliver that value, and you've got, and so, so anyway, I would say, probably Pat O'Keefe was the one that he's the reason I got into the space, but then taught me a lot about, this business.
Yeah, we can't get there alone. You have to have someone that block and tackles for a little bit, and then we have to pay it forward. Sounds like you're doing that. What do you tell people you do that not from within this industry? Because if you go and explain to anybody in this industry what datacenterHawk is, and you say it's the Zillow of data centers, we get it.
Yep.
That's actually perfect.
Yep.
My thing would be people that you don't know that you're sitting around and you're like, yeah, I'm in the data center industry, and they're like, what do you tell people?
Yeah, I typically tell people the same thing, except I add something where I say, we have like a Zillow for data center buildings. Those are buildings that hold the servers that power all of our technology. And they go, oh, okay. And then I think they walk away. And they go, yeah.
You let that answer go. You let that slide.
Yeah, typically, because there's a level at this that
you better step it up with them.
When people ask, you got about 10 seconds with them. And then beyond that, they think the cloud, a lot of people think the cloud is like,
Listen, I would talk about such boring shit that my only slides would have like pictures of like Monty Python, the Holy Grail. Because I know they would pay attention to that and try to tie it back to what's coming out of my face. And then and I'm like, sorry, there's nothing to do with that. But you're right. You're going to lose their attention.
So typically that's, what I do. A lot of people, I just say I work for a technology company. And I found that that's, if they want to dig, then I'll go to the next level with them. But because our space is a really not weird, but interesting dynamic where everybody uses it every day. If it messes up, their world is messed up.
Yeah, everybody's touching a data center.
But most of the time, they don't even know about it.
But I think you and I were talking, and we're talking about how we need to introduce this industry to more people. Yep. So we have to have a better way, a better narrative, because it's easy to dismiss it like if we're in the tech space and shit. And that's I think that's the humble nature of you, right? Yeah. Very unassuming, humble person. But my thing is we have to create a message and a tagline that makes it more appealing to them, right? Like we're launching a brand here in a little bit, and it's for that purpose. Like that's why we make shirts that have cool stuff on them, or stickers, or coffees, and we want people to want to know what a data center is. Like I want to see people. I want to go to some concert and see someone walking around with a shirt on that says such and such data center. Yeah. I want it to be a prevalent term that people understand, right? Because it's going to advance the industry in more ways, and it'll create more opportunity for us to. Yeah,
one thing we did this last summer was we had 4 high school interns that worked for us.
High school,
and we had a whole program for a couple of weeks. We called them the Quad Squad, and they ended up we toured them through a data center, which was awesome. I think for them to walk through and understand that. I think the more we can get kids out to facilities, and again, it's hard with security and all that stuff, but that I think has a big impact on people, because then they can kind of see, they can see it.
I think the operators are actually more open to that than you think. Yeah. Because they know that they need talent. They don't all need chiefs. They need some Indians too, and we need to start introducing more people into the space, right? Yeah. So that's interesting. But I'll be working with you on a campaign, it sounds like, to step up a game on how we do that. But we have to find a way to create an easier way for people to discover the industry that don't know it exists. And once they discover this industry, because it's a keyword or phrase they've not, been exposed to before, then we have to help them understand how to tie it back to something that is fun. Sure. Because I think that some of the greatest times I've ever had in my life have been in this industry. Yeah. And some of my greatest friends, they're just as tight as me with the guys that I've served with and the guys I wrestled with. I have amazing friends. I don't know about you, but there's people I grew up in this industry with, from the beginning. Right on. So it's actually kind of unique now to be, as we're becoming more tenured, also as getting older, it's like to look back and go, oh my gosh, we've been doing this for like 15 years. Yeah. Or we've been doing this for 20 years or 10 years. When did we get to know each other? Oh my gosh, like 12 years ago. It's kind of wild because it doesn't seem like that long. Well, but it's a long time. So listen, my first podcast was with Laramie and Justin, because the three of us kind of grew up in this space, and we were even bigger nobodies then, right? And now they're like, look at LD. He's I had we all at Cyrus One same time. JT's been Rosedin for almost 22 years, but he started at the very deck plate, and he's the EVP for the business, so he runs all their labor. And Laramie got to he was at Concept CSI with Hayden, and then Hayden went over first, and then Laramie followed him. Didn't follow him. Those guys have been working together with Fava and a bunch of those guys. They have their bands. You know how this industry works. When you have your bands, you keep the band together, so to speak. And I met him, I think, when he was still at Concept,
Sure.
and so before he was at MAP, before he went there, and, now at Yonder. But the three of us, we did it together, and it's the first time that we'd gone out for years with just us, because normally we're at industry events and there's people, or we're with our families or something. So we're never really alone anymore as adults, which is unsafe, right? But it was the first time that we were together, and I remember it was one of those two, like, just looked at the rest and like, can you believe, like, we were the ones that were always doing hallway races at these conferences that we probably shouldn't even have been at, know? And we were just learning by immersion, being around smart people and talking about fun things. But at the end of the day, like, now, like you said, we're becoming more tenured, and I'm like, can you believe they put people like us in charge of anything?
You're running one. You have your own conference, man. It's awesome.
Well, listen, I hope to have you come back.
Yeah, so, this has been really fun. Back at you. We, loved having you on our podcast.
I appreciate it. It was a privilege.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for the opportunity.
And thanks for showing up. I appreciate it, man.